My name's Colter Pence. I work on the Flathead National Forest, as Kent shared. My job here is as a Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers Trails Program Manager. I work with the northern portion of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, and I work with the Three Forks of the Flathead Wild and Scenic River System. I'm also a This Is Who We Are ambassador. And that is sort of like an ad hoc duty, as we call it in the Forest Service. So I did some training on the side and with my supervisor's support, and have offered up my time to focus and deliver This Is Who We Are content to audiences. And so it's in that capacity that I'm sharing this today. And if you want to learn more about being an ambassador itself, I'm happy to spend time on that at the end here to discuss that. Today, what we're doing here is I'm sharing with you perspectives and information that will help you connect your important work, your Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers work, and see how it fits into the bigger Forest Service mission, the Forest Service values, things like that. This is definitely for all employees of all levels, and this is for partners. And I really do want to give a shout out for the partners who joined us today, because I think this will help you learn more about the Forest Service organization and help you maybe reflect more deeply on what motivates us, what guides us. And for partners, I want to encourage you to think about the equivalent things for I want to have you think about the equivalent things, mission and values and commitments you make within your organization. So I know there's SAWS people in the audience. As we talk about Forest Service mission and Forest Service values, I want you to think about also at the same time SAWS mission and SAWS value, and you see how that relationship lines up, okay? This Is Who We Are. This Is Who We Are is all about enabling you to be a part of the Forest Service's values-based, purpose-driven, and relationship-focused culture. You see that on the slide before you? Remember that phrase, values-based, purpose-driven, and relationship-focused culture. And today we're going to talk about values, we're going to talk about purpose, and we're going to talk about our relationships with each other. And so tuning up and being aware of those three concepts will help you be a leader in these things, all right? Another perspective here on This Is Who We Are. And this is more for Forest Service people, but it's good for partners to be aware of this. This Is Who We Are concepts are being integrated, and in fact are integrated now into our new performance plans. For non-supervisory performance plans, code and commitments is in there. And in supervisory and non-supervisory performance plans, it talks about adhering to or focusing on mission and adhering to core values. So in a sense, you're being aware of these things will make you more tuned to the things in your performance plan or for the performance plans of the people you supervise. Related to that, there are plans, and it's in motion right now, but there are position descriptions within the Forest Service. They're starting with district rangers. They're updating position descriptions to include specific responsibilities for This Is Who We Are concepts. District rangers are the first ones out of the chute, and their PDs are being updated, saying that they are responsible for XYZ within This Is Who We Are concepts. And there will be more positions in the future that do this. And the last thing I want to share is that, oh, no, not the last, this is the second to last thing, hiring criteria going forward. There are plans to incorporate This Is Who We Are content as into our hiring practices. So what that could look like is asking people in interviews, what is your familiarity with This Is Who We Are concepts? How have you led in This Is Who We Are concepts? How have you integrated core value? How have you used the Forest Service core values in your work? How have you used code and commitments? That could be something in a hiring panel. That could be something that's looked for in your resume. So there are plans for that in the future. And some people are implementing this already as leaders. They're using this stuff in hiring panels. And then the last thing to share is that This Is Who We Are concepts. There are also plans for these things to be integrated into contracts and grants and agreements. So this is a way it may relate to our partners as well in the audience. that the things we learned about today, there could be a representation of this in the agreements that we have with you in the future. So I believe your time is well spent here. There are tangible things coming out that will help you, or that you will know more about now that you've spent a little time on this today. So that's a little context setting for you. The session I'm sharing with us today, this will be an engaging activity. It's an engagement activity. Heads up, I'm going to be asking people to volunteer to read some short passages aloud for us all to hear. I will be repeatedly asking people to speak up, come off of mute, and share a response to reflection questions. There is no way to get a question wrong here. I just want to hear voices, and I believe the audience wants to hear voices too. This will be more fun and more informative if you make a commitment to raising your hand and speaking at least once. People will value you sharing, so plan to do that today. Please commit to do that. This will be a more positive experience for everyone if we get to hear from everyone here. And I think we have about the right size of group for this too. Okay. So for our agenda, I'm not going to show the slide. I'm just going to do a rundown for you verbally. We're going to cover 4 main topics here. We're going to cover and reflect on Forest Service mission. Then we're going to talk about Forest Service core values. Then we're going to talk about how the Forest Service core values relates to our uniform and how we appear. And then the fourth is we're going to talk about code and commitments. Okay, so there's essentially 4 activities there. With that, I'm going to send something in the chat here. I want to make sure you have the This Is Who We Are booklet. You don't have to use it for today's activity. I'll be showing things on the slide, but I want to make sure that everybody has that on hand. Whoops. So here is a link for the booklet. And I'm going to share a PDF if you are struggling with the internet, which you're here today, so shouldn't be a problem. You can never guess where people's technology is helping or hurting them in any one given day. So let me pull that up here for you. I have to drive to the location, but once I'm there, I'll be able to stay there. Okay. Different version of the same booklet coming your way right now. Okay, and I see somebody sent me a direct message. Hey, I'd really appreciate it if we sent messages so that everybody can see. And it's also a little harder for me to see the direct messages. So if you really want to catch my eye, keep that on the to everybody thing there. Okay, with that, let's kick off and start our This Is Who We Are exploration. I'm going to start with a short video from the Chief of the Forest Service. I need to change my presentation mode to do that. So stand by. Okay. We should be good. Let's go ahead and learn about This Is Who We Are through the lens of the chief. And I encourage everybody, I will be asking afterwards, I encourage you to take a couple notes. What are your key takeaways, or what's something that was interesting to you that was just shared here? So get out a piece of scratch paper and jot down a couple of things that stood out to you.
Welcome to the Forest Service. I'm Chief Vicki Christensen, and I'm so happy that you have chosen the United States Forest Service because we need you. You know, you will learn a lot about us in the days to come, but you will find the essence of who we are in this little booklet. We are a values-based, purpose-driven, and relationship-focused organization. Our mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands for the benefit of current and future generations. And at the heart of our agency's mission is our purpose. Everything we do is intended to sustain the forests and grasslands. Why? Because our work supports nature in sustaining all life. Our work is based on 5 agency core values. Our core values are service, interdependence, conservation, diversity, and safety. Service is the heart of what we do and who we are and what we believe. Service not only to the American people, but to each other. And interdependence is another core value for the Forest Service. Interdependence in all things, past, present, and future. That includes the interdependence with nature, with our fellow employees, and with our partners in fulfilling our mission. Conservation is a core value that reflects our history as an agency. Today, our nation has 766 million acres of forests across different ownership types. It is the 4th largest forest estate in the world. And that is in good part thanks to our history of conservation at the Forest Service. 115 years of sustaining the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests. Conservation is a legacy that we are really proud of. Diversity is also built into our mission statement, sustaining the diversity of forests and grasslands. Diversity across the landscapes makes forests healthier, more resilient, and more productive. Diversity of our employees and diversity of those we serve. Diversity of thought, perspectives, and experiences makes us better as an agency and as a nation. Safety is another core value at the Forest Service. Safety in every way, physical, psychological, and social. Safety extends to everyone in the Forest Service and to every one of our partners, to every visitor who uses the National Forest System, and to everyone in the communities we serve. Safety has to do with the coronavirus pandemic and how to stay safe while fulfilling our mission. This is one of our dynamic tensions that we are facing. We are following new safety protocols such as social distancing and wearing face masks and other protective personal equipment to protect ourselves and each other. Some of you will be coming on board in a virtual environment rather than working in an office setting with your colleagues. We are all navigating our work with greater personal safety risks and uncertainty around us all the time. More than ever, we need to stay adaptable and resilient. We need to seek help when we need it and to offer help to others as we continue to serve the American people. Our core values of service, conservation, interdependence, diversity, and safety are based on relationships. We cannot succeed alone. We can fulfill our mission only by relying on each other, with our partners, and with the people and the communities we serve. So we are a values-based, purpose-driven, and relationship-focused organization. The more you learn about us, the more you will see this in action. This onboarding experience is intended to connect you virtually with our new
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video there. It continues on just a little bit and it talks about, onboarding employees, which isn't totally relevant for us today. So with that, I'd like to do a check-in with the audience. So what were some of your takeaways from that video? What were some of the themes that you picked up on? And I'll take replies in the chat for this particular one. Who there had seen that video before? It was actually released to all temp employees onboarding this year, and it was in the pre-work for onboarding. Okay, Rebecca, you're sharing diversity of employees, that's a part of our work. John, you appreciate the idea of interdependence. It's difficult to get anything done in a vacuum. Yes, and I think that's particularly relevant for our partnership work in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers. Oh, Peter, you picked up on the diversity component there. It's cultural diversity, ecological diversity. We're going to dive a little more into that. I look forward to picking that apart with you. Oh, thank you, JE. You shared that you had seen this for onboarding. So good for you. You did that pre-work properly. So, okay. Well, thank you, everybody. So let's carry on here and start to dive into a little bit more of This Is Who We Are. So let's start our focus on Forest Service mission. This is in the booklet if you want to follow along, but I've got it presented for you here. So for more than 100 years, the Forest Service has brought people and communities together to answer the call of conservation. Question for the audience: what year was the Forest Service created? And when we say for more than 100 years, what year was the Forest Service created? 1905. Yeah, so who can do the math? How old is the Forest Service? The Forest Service is grounded in world-class science and technology, and yet still rooted in communities. The USDA Forest Service connects people to nature and each other through our work. As a federal agency in service to the American people, the Forest Service cares about the natural resources in ways that promote long-lasting ecological, economic, and social vitality. When we talk about that, when we have that long-lasting reference there, I think of the greatest good for the greatest number for the longest run. And our agency supports nature in sustaining life. I think I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide here, but this emphasizes that relationship focused, purpose-driven, and values-based philosophy. So if you want to think more about that, study that one up. So let's talk a little bit more about Forest Service mission, our purpose, and our value. The Forest Service was created on the principle of managing the nation's resources, as I said, for the greatest good, for the greatest number, for the longest run. In the decades leading up to 1905, so I'm thinking about, the late 1800s time frame, before the Forest Service was created, there was rapid development and expansion into our natural resources, and they were being put at risk. I'm thinking of those stories. If you don't know your Forest Service history, you should spend time learning about this. I'm talking about the destructive grazing practices and timber harvesting that was occurring at the turn of the century. And that's why the Forest Service was created, was to get arms around that, to get a handle on that, and start managing the resource in a wise way for a longer period so that more people would benefit, and it wasn't just one and done, and then the ecosystem was destroyed. That was the purpose of the Forest Service. The job of the Forest Service, the jobs of employees in those days was clear. It was to provide for water quality, timber for the nation, and protect local residents' access to forest resources. Today, our job is similar, but it has modern tones to it. It's to provide resources and protect access to them. But our world has changed. Our population and demands on those resources have grown. And yet the environmental science has evolved and become more robust. So this is all a reflection of how our mission is still similar to what it was back in the very early days, protecting the resources for the American people. But the threats and the challenges to our resources have changed. I'm thinking today those threats are climate change, surging use. Those are different threats than what they were at the turn of the century, and yet it's still our job to focus on those threats. So let's talk a little bit more about where your place is in all of that. Okay, now here's where I want to start getting some volunteers to raise hands. I'd like to get 2 people to raise their hand to read aloud the mission. We'll focus on mission first. Can I get someone to raise their hand? And reminder, here is how you raise your hand. Oh, so Peter's already got it. Thank you, Peter. We'll call on you. But I want to remind everybody how to raise your hand. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a reactions button. Okay. And you click that open and you can raise your hand there. And so thank you, Peter, for leading out on that. Peter, can you please read aloud for us the mission statement that you see there?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, great, Peter.
Okay. So you mean the thing in the bottom left-hand corner?
Yes, that mission statement there.
You got it. Mission, sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations.
Okay, Peter, can you share back for me and everyone to learn from you? What does that mean to you and how does it resonate with you?
Well, so each of those terms, those nouns, health, diversity, and productivity, mean literally the ecological, biological health and diversity and productivity of forests and grasslands, talking about natural sciences. But I also think it means the figurative, the sort of symbolic health, diversity, and productivity of the workforce, of the employees. So we're not just forest rangers going out there and measuring trees at breast height and all the kind of classical stuff a forester used to do, still does. But also we are an agency that cares about the well-being and the representing the full range of society in our workforce, meaning gender, class, sexuality, race, ethnicity, etc. That's what it means to me. Oh, and to meet the needs of present, future generations. Yeah, it's the Gifford Pinchot, the greatest good for the greatest number of people for the longest period of time. It's also, I think of the what former Interior Secretary Sally Jewell used to say, which is that she would say, "We're in the forever business," and that's really stuck with me.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for leading out on that.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And so, hey, audience, that's the way this is going to go today. I'm just going to at various times ask people to read something aloud and say, hey, what does that make you think of? How do you interpret that? There's no way to get these answers wrong, but we want to hear your thoughts, all right? So be brave and be ready to volunteer to do that, all right? So with that, I'd like to get another volunteer for motto. And how simple is that one, right? It's an easy read and it's simple concepts, or is it? Can I get a volunteer to read aloud motto for us? And for what it's worth, if you raise your hand, that's great. I can also see people when they come off of mute. So if you're struggling there to get your hand raised, I can still see you come off of mute. Go ahead, JE. And Matt, I'm going to put you on deck for the next reply, all right? So go ahead, JE. Read aloud motto and tell us what it means to you.
Sure. It's caring for the land and serving people. And I suppose what that means to me is that the stewardship of the land is interwoven with the service of the public. So I think those two things are inextractable from each other in terms of the Forest Service's mission. So the way the Forest Service approaches the work it does with the land to protect the land or conserve it is intimately tied up with the ways in which the agency aims to support the public's needs.
Okay, thank you very much for tackling that one. So I'd like to check in with Matt. Matt, first, so I'm not going to ask you to read anything. I just want you to sort of capstone and share your bigger picture thoughts here. So Matt, here's the question for you. I'd like to first know who you work with and what is the work that you do. Go ahead and share that out with us.
I work with Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards, and I'm a crew leader for the trail crew there.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So here's the question I have for you. When you see Forest Service mission and motto, what does this mean to you as a person who works in wilderness? Can you reflect on the wilderness piece of this? Where does wilderness fit into this?
Yeah, I kind of, I think it's about kind of conserving these areas and protecting them, but in tandem with making sure that they're also accessible to folks to go out and enjoy. Kind of like that dynamic is what I was thinking about.
Okay, thank you. For me, when I think about the Forest Service mission and motto, when I think about wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, I think of that diversity piece that we see there in mission, that we're offering through wilderness and scenic rivers a piece of the diversity that the National Forest System offers. So we have ski areas, we have campgrounds, we have wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, we have ATV areas, we have snowmobile areas. We've got things all over the board. But those of us here in this room today are probably focused on wilderness and wild and scenic rivers. And that's our work, and the work that the things that we work to offer to the American people, that's a piece of that diversity of the Forest Service mission. And when I think of caring for the land, we put a lot of care into our wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, don't we? Think of all the stewardship work that we do. And we do that for the people, so they can visit a wilderness and wild and scenic river, or maybe they don't even visit, but they at least know that it's there, and it brings them satisfaction to know that there are special places that are protected by people like you and I, and that's part of our service. So for me, caring for the land and serving people, I have a very deep connection to our wilderness and wild and scenic rivers work. I hope you do too. Okay, so what I'd like to ask from the audience is there, if you have any additional thoughts about how your work relates to mission or motto, I'd love to see some replies in the chat. All right, what's your vision for how your work relates to mission and motto? How do you anticipate the work that you're doing even this summer relates to mission and motto?
I just dropped this in the chat, but I think it's notable on both the mission and the motto. Like I mentioned the example of reduce is greater than reuse is greater than recycle. Like we say it in that order for a reason. And I think it's interesting the way that we've kind of put all of the information into this statement, caring for the land and serving the people. So it's starting with caring for that land and making sure that that is a sustainable use and can continue being used. And then after that, there are these personal uses, whether it's rafting trips or a ski resort or timberland, whatever it is. And I think similar for the mission, health, diversity, productivity, like making sure that that ecosystem proceeds as it wants to, and then it becomes productive for people and for us, for present and then future generations. I think like that the design of that is probably not arbitrary.
How interesting. So you're finding significance in the order of those things, that it starts with caring for the land and then serving people. And I would suggest we can't serve people if we don't start with caring for the land. So I appreciate you bringing that up and sharing that. Thank you. Okay, what I'd like to get our attention to now is on the right side of the slide here, and that is there's 4 bullet points there. Okay, let's dive into those a little bit. These are 4 unique value, the 4 unique value items that the Forest Service uniquely offers. Okay, these are things that are have value and have worth to them. I'd like to bring up a poll as you study those, and I'd like to ask you, which one of these 4 value items, these things that have worth, which one of these relates most to the work that you do? How do you see your work relating to these unique value items? If you can't see the poll, it just has to do with some connectivity things. Put your answer in the chat instead, and we'll account for it there. All right. Okay, I can see how answers are coming in here. You can't, but I see people actively voting right now, and we're getting there. We're about 1/3 of the way there for voting or selecting. I don't know if it's voting. Polling is polling, right? Okay, we've got a few more people who haven't selected what most relates to your work. And I want to acknowledge partners, you're helping us do these things. You're helping us deliver these value items. So which do you most connect to? Okay, we're there. Let's go ahead and share the results here. Let's check out where people came in. Okay, so it looks like by a slight lead, more people resonated with connecting people to the land, followed by providing access to resources and experiences. And then kind of on the tail end was working in collaboration with communities and our partners. And we also had 2 people who were focused on delivering world-class science and technology and land management. Excellent. Okay. So what I'd like to do is I would like to hear from 2 people who chose connecting people to the land and one another. I want to hear from 2 people to explain why you chose that one. All right. Raise your hand or come off of mute to share. Why was it that you chose that one? And when you do that, I want to know who you work with and what your work is. Okay, who's going to be that person or those 2 people?
Hi, I'm
Hi,
Phoebe.
hi, Phoebe. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I work with the Montana Wilderness Association
Okay.
in partnership with the Forest Service in the Cabinet Mountain Wilderness in the Kootenai
Excellent.
National Forest. And I'm a wilderness ranger this summer, and it's actually my first summer doing this. I was on a trail crew last summer, but it seems like, at least for my purpose, this summer, just with the influx of people using our wilderness areas, they've hired a few more people, and I think the main purpose of my job is really going to be doing patrols this summer and checking in with people, making sure they're using wilderness correctly and politely, and yeah, just wearing the uniform, and then also myself being polite and answering questions and really trying to connect to the people and show them how beautiful this forest is. So
Thank you, Phoebe. Excellent. And great example of a partner connecting to how we all deliver value. Thank you for sharing out on that. Could I get another person to share out their vision and why they chose that, selected that one? There were 7 of you. There's 6 others in the audience out there besides Phoebe. Okay, go ahead, Shannon. Come off of mute and share, please.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I am with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit out in Lake Tahoe Forest Service.
Excellent.
I've been a ranger out here for a bit over 10 years. I selected this one just as I work in a very, very busy wilderness.
Which wilderness is that?
Desolation Wilderness is
Okay.
the primary focus. I'm working on the PCT, goes through the core of our wilderness, and we are in very close proximity to the Bay Area. We have very easy access to a pretty small but beautiful area. So it draws a lot of people, including a lot of first timers. As much as doing the trail work and other parts are some of the highlights of the job for me, I really feel like where we make the biggest difference as rangers out here is our visitor contacts and education with the public that is utilizing the wilderness and trying to build that sense of stewardship and long-term appreciation for being stewards of the wilderness in our visiting public. So that is why I selected this one.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for stepping up there. So I want to go to the other end of the scale. I want to check in with one of those 2 people who selected delivering world-class science, technology, and land management. Will one of you step up and share with us why you chose that one? You were in the minority, and therefore you have an important voice. Let's check in with you. Why did you choose that one, and what is your work? How does it relate? Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, my name is Kara Trenger, and I'm a wilderness fellow this year. And so a lot of my work is looking at pulling together wilderness character baseline assessments, which is a process that is rooted in science, so that we can, make better decisions about how we manage our wilderness areas.
Excellent example, Kara. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being brave and letting us know your philosophy there and how you connect to that. Yes, wilderness character monitoring, definitely rooted in science. And that kind of blows people's minds. So many people perceive that wilderness is a soft world and there's flim-flammy stuff, and yet we're anchoring it down, aren't we, with our wilderness character monitoring. So thank you, great example there. All right, we don't have time to check in on everything, but I would really love, and I believe the audience would also appreciate hearing from a few of you on why you chose providing access, and for those of you who chose working in collaboration with communities and partners, love to see a short written example in the chat. That'll help us understand those connections. Please be willing to share that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move us on though, and hope to see some things in the chat there. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up this focus on our mission and our value that we offer together. At the heart of the Forest Service mission is our purpose, the ultimate answer to why we do what we do. Everything that we do with the Forest Service and with our partners is across a broad and diverse organization, and it's intended to help sustain forests and grasslands for present and future generations. I hope you now have a better understanding of your role in delivering on the Forest Service mission and purpose. And specifically, whether you're an employee or you're a partner, your role in delivering on the Forest Service's mission and purpose. And for those with partners, I also want to encourage you to take a moment afterwards and reflect on, do a similar thought exercise around your organization's mission and purpose and your role in delivering on that. Okay, let's go focus on our agency's core values. So we're going into our second module here. As employees and partners with the Forest Service, hang on, I got to mute something here. Someone's pinging me and I don't want that to be a distraction for everybody. I'm going to get noises bursting through here. I can see this person's going to kind of pester me for a while. Okay, got them silenced. Okay, so let me start over here. So our agency's core values. As employees and partners of the Forest Service, we all have personal values. I have personal values. Peter Molly has personal values. We're probably not the same exact personal values, and they define who we are and how we act as individuals. But we also have shared core values that define us as employees and partners and drive our agency, okay? Then they reflect on the proud heritage of the Forest Service, and it's expressed in our work, okay? These values, they're shared by the people in the communities that we serve as well. And they connect us to the people outside of our agency, with those that care about the land and caring about serving people. Our values are evident in everything we do and how we do it. When you think about core values, and this is a thought exercise for you to consider following up with afterwards, what are some of your core values? And when you think hard about that, you'll realize how they drive you and how they've helped you make hard decisions. Well, when we talk about Forest Service core values, we think about the power of core values and how they can really motivate and drive us as an organization. They guide us and tell us what to consider. And when we check in on our core values, we know we're advancing our mission in ways that allow us to stay true to who we are and what we believe as the Forest Service. So let's learn more about our core values. Thank you, Lauren, by the way, for that thought, for sharing your reasons, your value there. Okay, so on the screen before you here is our 5 core values: service, interdependence, conservation, diversity, and safety. They were introduced in the video. The chief talked about them several times. I want you to take a moment and just sort of absorb those. Think about that. Are these expressed in the ways you would have thought they would have been? For me, some of these go further than I would have initially thought. Okay, what I'd like to do is a poll and ask you which of these core values resonates most with you today. If you can't see the chat, or if you can't see the poll, drop your answer in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing some active poll response there. We're all over the board, which is good to see. Oh, this is going to be interesting, David.
I was just thinking that.
Okay. Okay, couple more people. If you're ready to click your selection there, we'll be able to share the results. Okay, 3 of you are hanging out there. Okay, let's go ahead and share the results. Okay. David, I think we will not do breakout groups. I think we can do this in a group setting here. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
So conservation, 11 of you chose that one, and we had representation for all 5 of them, really. Did it surprise you that we had more people going for conservation? Or is that what you thought would happen? Okay, let's take a little dive in here and learn more about why people chose what they chose. Let's just plan to go in order here. I would like to hear from the person who chose service. Can you please come off of mute? And let's do a check-in with you on that one. Okay, JE, you're the one who chose service?
Yes, that was me.
Will you please read aloud the full thing for service if you're still able to see that? And then share with us why you selected that one.
Service to each other, to the American people, to the planet. And I chose that one because I was battling between service and conservation, but in my mind, conservation is a sort of service, especially when you take the to the planet line into consideration. And ultimately, in my mind, conservation of the land is tied with service to the people. So that's why I chose service.
Thank you, JE. Okay. Let's check in with someone from interdependence. There were 4 of you. Will one of you please come off of mute or raise your hand and let us know. First, I'd ask you to read aloud that interdependence blurb and then share with us why you selected that one and how that relates to your work. Okay, come on, someone from interdependence, step up. This is a fascinating one. I really want to hear your mind. Drew, you've stepped up. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I chose interdependence.
Before you dive in, but wait, will you please read aloud that interdependence blurb?
Yeah, that's what I was going.
Okay.
Of all things, people and nature, communities and colleagues, the past, present, and future. I chose this one because it kind of puts them all together in my mind. Like you can't do any of these individual things without doing the others. So I felt like it tied it all in, and that's kind of why I chose it.
So it drew a big box for you.
Yeah.
Okay, Drew, and what work do you do, and how does interdependence show up in your work a little bit?
So I'm on a trail crew with saws, and I haven't honestly thought about this part of it as much. We are mostly with, I feel like, slightly service, and conservation, but we still have like our Jedi program and everything. Like saws as a whole definitely tries to put all these parts in. But a lot of like the trail work specific stuff is just it's more conservation and service.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for you expressed that really well, and thank you, Matt. You said ditto, I think. Thank you, Matt, for jumping in on that one. Okay, let's go to conservation. Actually, since there was a good group of you, I'd like to hear from 2, and maybe we'll hear a range of reasons why by checking in with 2 people there. So who hasn't spoken up yet? Here's a good chance for you to jump in and share something. Why did you choose conservation? go ahead and come off of mute. You're not all tripping up on each other. I can see when you come off of mute.
That
Okay.
is when people ask about what it is that I do, that's the thing that I get questioned about most often. So in
Okay,
terms of
wait,
public
Jeffrey,
perception-
can you please first read aloud the conservation one and then share with us your why?
Conservation, protection when necessary, prevention when appropriate, restoration when needed, and wise management for multiple use and enjoyment always. Yeah, when I talk to people about this job, that's kind of the thing that always comes up, whether it's like, oh, I really admire that about what it is that you're going to be doing, or if it's, well, we could really be making more money off of that ecosystem. Either way, it usually boils down to that. And then also, in terms of like, I have a joke with my friends and I, like we've all been working for like Fish and Wildlife or Forest Service or whoever else for the last 2 years, and we just kind of talk about like, that's what keeps us all employed. Like whatever we're doing to conserve right now, we're going to find out in 10 years that it's wrong, and then 10 years down the line we'll still have a job because we'll have to fix that mistake. So there's this kind of never-ending cycle in this industry of whatever is going on, it will need some sort of protection or preservation or restoration down the road, and that's kind of what keeps the ball rolling on all of this.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, can we hear from another person in conservation and to hear another voice, since a lot of you chose that one, on what resonated with you about that? I would call on names, but I don't know how people voted. If you feel strongly about this one, I want to hear from you. Go ahead, Phoebe.
Yeah, I already spoke earlier, but I really liked what JE had to say, tying it in with service. And for me, conservation is just, what more can I do to help preserve these special places? And so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Phoebe. And Peter, your hand's up. I'd like to check in with you too.
I also spoke already, but I just wanted to chime in for conservation. It's an honor and it's a privilege to be entrusted with taking care of these places. For me, it's wilderness, but it could be rivers or national monuments or whatever. So, sorry, I don't really have anything articulate prepared. I just find this to be the coolest job in the world, and I can't believe that they pay me to do it.
Thank you. Well, and that's why you chose conservation. You had an instinct for that. Okay, Gray, you had your hand up too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I chose conservation because it kind of gives us a framework for like what we're going to be doing. For me on trail crew, it's mostly depending on what I'm doing, it kind of dictates, like, I'm trying to think of how to formulate this, how I proceed. So like restoration, we might be closing off a trail and letting that, grow back, or protection might be educating people about LNT or what wilderness is. Let's see, it just gives us that framework for how our job is going to move forward, and what exactly we're going to be doing. Like this summer, it will be a lot of preservation of the AT by just maintaining the trail. So that's kind of why I picked conservation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll sort of wrap up the conservation focus for right now. And for me, the pieces of conservation, the protection and the preservation part of that comes into play heavy, right? In wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, sometimes restoration as well. But wise management of our wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, that's important too. And I do hope that people are able to enjoy those places as well. So I also lean on conservation a lot. Let's do a check-in with the person who chose diversity. Definitely interested in hearing from you. And there was only one of you, but as I said, the minority voices are important. Who chose diversity? Will you share with us why you chose that one? And heads up, the person who chose safety, I want to do a check-in with you too. In fact, let's just open it up. Oh, go ahead, John. You just came off of mute.
Yeah, I'm the person who chose diversity. I just think that having those different perspectives and ideas, learning from different people is really important, because when you see things in a different perspective, and especially when, like, if you're doing something your own way and it's not turning out the way you want it, you know, opening up your mind to different ideas and different ways of doing things is help you find a solution that you might otherwise not have come into. And then on the ecosystem side, like having a diverse ecosystem and then a diverse range of ecosystems is also important to having a healthier world for us, at least in my opinion.
Thank you. And I want to add on to your vision for diversity. I look at the experiences part of diversity, and for me, the diversity experiences connection, it's not just about the experience that we all have in this work, that we all have different experience that helps us do a better job with our work. But I also think of the difference of experiences on national forest systems, okay, on the national forests. So as I said earlier, we've got ski areas, we've got campgrounds, we've got wilderness, we've got wild and scenic river, we've got everything all out there. But this core group today here, we're the ones that work on delivering a certain piece of that diverse experience, experiencing a wilderness, experiencing a wild and scenic river. So we are helping deliver that diversity of experience. Okay, let's do a check-in with the person who chose safety. Go ahead, Lauren.
Hey, my name is Lauren. River Ranger.
Would you read aloud that safety
Sure.
blurb and yeah, tell us about your work when you give your answer?
Sure thing, Colter. Safety in every way, physical, psychological, and social. I'm a river ranger on the Salmon Chalice National Forest, and I think that's why that resonated with me today, versus the other ones, which would normally probably resonate with me more generally, like every other day. Safety resonated with me today is because I took my pack test yesterday. So
and you're feeling it?
It's resonating in my legs, and but it was interesting in the pack test, well, following it in the refresher, the whole thing was frameworked and being very safe, and it was a diverse group of employees, but we were all valued for our input during the refresher, which was pretty nice, and we covered some really good ground going into the aquatic invasive species portion of how to like maintain your equipment as you're moving around from job site to job site. And it was pretty interesting to hear the biologist talk about how he's been in fire refreshers like forever. He's been a long time employee, and he's seen it evolve to include the aquatic invasive species portion in the training for the firefighters. And so it was just kind of nice to see people's input just getting thrown out there into a fire class, which kind of just like you generalize, oh, it's full of fire guys and we're just gonna talk about whatever. But it really expanded into that kind of having that like social framework and everybody feeling safe to give their input. It was pretty nice to see him or hear him talk about how it's evolved and it's really affected the other conservation and diversity and stuff. It was pretty awesome.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for sharing out for us your connection to safety. And I want to share that it's perfectly legitimate that on any given day or where you're in moments in time that your connection to and your focus on one of these core values, it may change, right? It's changed over time for me. So I've been I've been training and sharing this ambassador stuff for This Is Who We Are for a few months now. And I was initially very focused and connected to conservation, like many of you in the audience. Then I went to service for a while. I had a lot of things going on in my day job that were pulling on the service aspect of my work. And I'm heavy into diversity now, okay? So where you might resonate or focus or connect your work to, that can change all the time. And that's okay, right? So the point here is we pull upon core values. And you pull upon them depending on what's going on around you. So thank you, everybody. Sephora, your hand is up. Go ahead and share out. And I'm wondering if this is the Sephora that I know.
It certainly is, Colter. This is the entire reason I keep watching you. It's kind of
The one
creepy,
and
but-
only.
Yeah, there aren't that many. I was just gonna say that, well, I was one of the really annoying people who didn't say anything under conservation. But as I was reading back over them, I was really connecting with safety. And I didn't initially click on it because I always kind of makes jokes about safety. But as I was reading more into like the definition of safety, and underneath it says in every way, physical, psychological, and social, I kind of thought about why I connect with wilderness, and how much it does for me emotionally, and how much it's like a place that I go to rejuvenate, where I take other people to like find an inner sense of calm. And I think that a lot of people do that, especially like historically looking at a lot of the land management activists have come from big cities, and that need to find some quiet spaces as our world becomes more and more developed. And so I wasn't expecting to connect with safety in that way, but I think that that had a huge that I liked that one as well. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, thank you, Sephora, for speaking up. And so we're going to give live evidence of how what I do in this session is dependent upon what happens in our discussion. Because of what Sephora just shared there, I'm going to pivot a little bit and go in a different direction than where I thought we were going to go. What I'm going to share here on the screen is a thought exercise around how wilderness and wild and scenic rivers reflects these core values. And I want to ask for input, because what Sephora just shared there is something that some of us have been talking and thinking about. So let me get my screen shared here. Okay, here. Okay. What I'm sharing here is actually a poster. All right. I'll zoom in a second, but I want you to see the big format of this. And what you see at the top is the Forest Service mission. We just reflected on that. And then what you see here in the light green, it says U.S. Forest Service core values reflected in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers. So let's dive in and let's think a little bit more closely how our work is reflected in these core values. And let's start with safety, because that's where Sephora went. And if you have more ideas around this stuff, I want to hear it, because I want to add more to this. I want your voice into this conversation here. So what Sephora was just saying there is thinking about how safety shows up in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, and that is the psychological and even social safety, that people seek out wilderness and wild and scenic rivers as a place of refuge, and a place of personal growth. That's reflected right here on this poster. Right here, I'm highlighting it for you. I'm going to try to make this just a little bit bigger. There we go. That within wilderness, our primitive and unconfined recreation provides opportunities for physical, but also mental challenges, and it's associated with adventure and real consequences for mistakes, but also offers personal growth. And that also wilderness and wild and scenic rivers are a place for healing and renewal for visitors. I think that's what you were getting at, Sephora. Peter, you've come off of mute. Do you have something you want to share?
No, I thought I was still muted. Sorry.
You got it. Yes, Peter, this particular poster is focused on wilderness and wild and scenic rivers. There's another working version for any unit or other program area. So whether it's a forest or the timber program, they can work through this too. To try to answer your question, Pete. Pete. Okay, so does anybody see things? Are you thinking of things, how your work in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers relates to safety? I'd like to add more here if you're thinking of something. I'm going to scroll up, let you see a little more here. Let's take a look at diversity. How do we deliver on diversity in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers? We have a diverse wilderness preservation system. We have a diverse wild and scenic river system. We've got wilderness and landscapes and rivers all over the country. We also have traditional uses and yet unconventional people, and that represents diversity. We offer a piece of that diverse experience, and that is solitude, primitive, unconfined recreation. We offer unique values in wilderness. What are you thinking about this? Do you have ideas on how the diversity quality shows up in your work that we could add to this poster? Okay, Pete, you're thinking that an overemphasis on safety can be contrary to wilderness stewardship. Yes, that we aren't offering a highly safe, curated experience in wilderness. Yes, I agree with you, is what I'm thinking you're sharing there. Do you see diversity showing up in some ways that we could add to this? Okay, let's focus on conservation here for a minute. So many of you chose conservation. How does conservation show up in our wilderness and wild and scenic rivers work? I'm thinking it shows up in how we work on preserving wilderness character, protecting and enhancing the ORVs of our river systems, wilderness stewardship performance, wilderness character monitoring. Wilderness and wild and scenic rivers represents around 20% of National Forest System lands. That's 38, I can't say numbers very well, 3,800,000. You can read the number there. Are you seeing any more connections on how we deliver conservation in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers?
I was just going to say, I think education, which the Forest Service through rangers and things is really crucial to conservation at large, to get more people excited about, helping to conserve these areas and making them more well known.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you for that contribution. And I don't think education, wilderness education, river education is yet represented on here. I will work to add that. I'm just going to drop a note in for right now as a placeholder. I'm just going to put in education, but we'll work that one out. Thank you for sharing that. Great addition. Love it. Kudos. Okay, any other thoughts? Please share them out. I'm going to jump up to interdependence, so that connection, that relationship stuff, the people, the nature, communities, colleagues, past, present, future. Here's what I'm thinking. We have a lot of partners. We've got national partners. We have local partners. We have those places that bring us together like Wilderness Connect and rivers.gov. We've got professional groups, Team Rapids. We have our training center. We have our research institute that bring people together. Interdependence to me relates to the untrammeled quality, how it connects and ultimately reflects much of our wilderness. And wilderness skills institutes like this one today relates to interdependence. Is bringing us together, colleagues, communities. Does anybody see anything to add to this interdependence concept here?
This is like sort of, I guess, tied with the traditional cultural uses, but one of the things that drew me to the concept of interdependence is the idea of like kinship arrangements between humans and non-human nature, and breaking down the nature-culture binary.
Thank you. I'm going to work up a little more on that one there. I see from Corn Creek, you want to add that for the education comment, that's much of what you do there, right? You do all of that education and orientation for people there at Corn Creek. And you cover safety, leave no trace. Great examples there. We're going to add that. I appreciate everybody. Yes, Kent, I see the warnings there. Last one here, service. Service to each other, the American people, and the planet. How we deliver on service. We have many service groups that work together to provide work in our field or provide professionalism in our field. That's sort of represented on the left-hand side there. But also the service is that wilderness is America's enduring resource, and we have wilderness for wilderness sake. That's a service to our country. And that we protect these areas for the American people and for the benefit of future generations. That's a part of our service. Any more ideas around service? Okay, well, so we did do a little diversion there, and that is all because Sephora, you know, kind of just got me going on that topic. So thanks, Sephora. Okay, we are approaching the end here, but I do want to share one more thing for you. So I kind of, instead of we did that little diversion. I still want to share a resource for you. The third module, which we did not get to, is called Code and Commitments. I want to share a resource for you so you could reflect on this on your own. So stand by, I'm going to put something in the chat. I'm going to put two versions of it actually. This is the Code and Commitments content. And what I put there is like a poster version of that content. And the second one I'm putting here is more of like a double-sided 8x11 if you preferred that for your use. And what Code and Commitments is about, and I'm just going to do a quick summary here, is it's about delivering, it's about our relationship with each other, all right? It's about, let me pull up here. Just stand by. Okay, it's about how we treat each other, that relationship side of things. And if you look in the chat and download those documents, it talks about how we treat each other, like how that shows up, what empowering each other looks like, what investing relationships, how that functions. Talks about modeling integrity, how you can live that. All right. It talks, the attachments talk a little bit more of that detail there. It talks about a we do and we don't, and how we keep these, how we do keep these commitments to each other, and how we avoid and the things we don't do that break those commitments to each other. So if you want to reflect a little bit more on that on your own time, you have the content to do that. And I will say, for Code and Commitments, for me in my program, this is something that we integrate to our safety. We include Code and Commitments in our tailgate safety sessions forms. We identify a code and commitment that could further that tailgate safety session form topic. So I just want to give you a vision on using that. We keep a poster up, keep the poster up in our office, and we keep the double-sided one in our vehicles. And it's a framework for thinking routinely on how you're treating each other and how you should expect to be treated by others. All right. So you do have that content to share for yourself, to use and share if you want to. I'm gonna drop in the chat here a link that you can use to find a little bit more about This Is Who We Are. In fact, yeah, I'll just open it up for you right now. With that, I think I'm ready to close out This Is Who We Are session. If there's questions or discussion, people, I'm happy to do that now for the last few minutes here. What are you thinking? How did this feel to you? That's actually a question I like to close out with, is tell me how learning about this today felt to you. What did it make you think of? And if you want to speak up or put your comment in the chat, I'm happy to hear that, where your mind is at this point. Maybe I'll do a check-in with my team here, with David and Kent. What did this conversation make you think of today? How do you feel about things now? Thank you, John, for that comment there. Go ahead, Kent.
David, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, Colter. The one thing that I just started thinking of was how you mentioned that some of the "This is who we are" content will be incorporated into Forest Service hiring, and just reflecting that, I think that's a great thing. Here at SAWS, we've incorporated a lot of our values into our hiring and interview process also, and we found a lot of value in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. Colter, I think what's so valuable about the "This is who we are" booklet and this presentation to today is that, we oftentimes, those of us have been around a while, and new employees, you get hired in for a job or you're focused on a job. I think it's really just helps provide the larger context that we work under. Not only, oftentimes most of us work with the natural resource, the trails, the wilderness, rivers, but this also, I think, provides that broader context. As an agency, we interact, a lot of what we do is we interact with people inside and outside the agency. I think this just helps define, how the agency and how all of us expect to interact with both ourselves and the partners and the public. And so it just provides that larger context, that even though we may be very focused on even a very single job, it provides that broader look. And I think it helps us understand where we all, and in the Forest Service, want to head as far as how we treat people, treat others, and interact. Thanks, Colter.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, David. Thank you, Carrie, for your thought there. This helps you feel a little more connected to the mission. It gives you a sense of excitement. And I appreciate John's comment as well, saying that this helps give him a little bit more context when he talks about his work with his friends and family, like gives you a little more to help explain to them the value of your work and how it fits into the big picture. I think that's really important. Those are sometimes our most important audience to do education with, right? Make sure your family understands the importance of the work. And when you're maybe working a few extra hours because you just really believe this is whatever you're doing is the right thing to do, or you're working really hard on a challenge and your mind is distracted, your family will have a better understanding of why this is all so important for you. Sephora, I saw you come off of mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to echo a little bit of what was already said, but I just connected on a deeper level than I was expecting with the mission statement. And I think that sometimes the mission statement kind of gets lost in the bureaucracy. It's really easy to get jaded along the way. And so to just come back to these mission statements and to realize how in line my personal mission is with the agency's mission statement, just kind of reinvigorates me to a certain extent.
Okay, thank you, Sephora. Where are you working these days, Sephora?
I'm working out in the Inyo, out of Mammoth Lakes, California.
Oh, okay.
This season, but I've been bopping a lot, lots of bopping.
Yeah. All right. Best wishes, Sephora.
Thanks, you too.
Any other last thoughts out there? Okay, well, if you do have any last thoughts, I'll keep an eye on the chat. Thank you, everybody, and I hope this was an enriching morning for you.
That's it for This Is Who We Are. Colter, thank you so much. A great session. And I do want to thank David for his behind the scenes running the show and helping us move this along. So have a great rest of the session today and tomorrow. So thanks.
Thank you, Colter, Kent, and David. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thanks for making that so engaging and hands-on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the people who helped do that.